Have you ever seen a book being wildly recommended, like everywhere? You see it all over social media, or tons of people you know are talking about it, and then you're all excited to read this amazing book, and you pick it up, and it's lame. And you're like, this book is terrible. How does everybody love this book? And then you go on Goodreads or wherever you look at book reviews, and it has like 4.5 stars, and you're like, where is this coming from? And then maybe you watch some YouTubers that you like, or book talkers that you like, and to try to see what they say about it, and they're all talking about these things that they loved about this book too, and you just feel like you're in an alternate universe. You're like, did I just read some completely different book than everybody else because this book sucked? A lot of times when I see book reviews, the main focus in the review is on things like talking about how well the prose is written, and the characterization or the arcs or the character development throughout the story, and the pacing of the book. Was it fast paced? Was it slow paced? Did it meet all the relevant plot points? Was the world building detailed enough to actually pull you in and make you immersed? And was the description well written so you could actually imagine the things that were happening in the settings and all that, right? That's the general talk that we see in reviews on books. But sometimes you'll watch that review or read that review, and it will talk about all these things, and they might actually be done pretty well, but you're still like, I hated this book. So that's why I think that the way that we commonly do reviews actually doesn't work that well, and there's a better way to do them that would make more sense for most people. Right now, I feel like when I want reviews, I have to try to watch or read the same reviewer multiple times and pick up on if we care about the same things and we have the same taste. And then if I find somebody that has similar taste as me, I trust their opinion more. But it doesn't always work because we're not the same person. So sometimes they give a review and they love a book, and then I read it and I still hate it. And it's because most reviewers are talking about the construction of the book rather than whether a particular individual would enjoy that book. And those two things can be really different, because somebody can still create something well, but we don't like it. You could construct a really well made house, but it might be dark and I don't want to live in a cave, right? Or you could make a great seafood dish, and I don't like seafood, so it doesn't work for me, right? It's the same thing with books. Even when they're constructed well, which honestly, the problem is usually a mix of both, but even when they are constructed well, you still might not like it. And that's something that I think we really need to start addressing when we do book reviews. So then what do I think we should do for book reviews? Well, I think that there's 3 questions that we can think about when describing a book that would really help people get a sense if it's the book that they want, as well as talking about construction. So the first question is, who is the book for? And this is going to have to do with taste. Are you going into a book because you want something optimistic, or you like cynical stories or more pessimistic ones? Do you like realistic books or idealized books? Do you like character driven more or plot driven? Do you like cozy? Do you like dark? Do you like emotional or intellectual? Now, these things don't have to necessarily be at odds with each other, but a lot of times we do have sort of a taste. And if something is, say, like for me, if it's too idealized, I lose interest quick. So I really love speculative fiction, and I've mentioned this before, because I like taking realistic people and realistic relationships and putting them in these bizarro worlds with bizarro rules, and then being able to think about the human experience in this extreme setting. I think that's interesting, and I think it can bring up a lot of interesting questions that are also part of my taste in books. I like it when a book looks at moral questions and questions about power and human nature and love, and really delving into the meaning of things. And that's the kind of books that I'm looking for. But a lot of other people don't really want to do that or think that deeply about it. They want something that's fun and entertaining, maybe instead. And those people tend to like the idealized types of books better. Like, I would say romance. It takes people who are less realistic in situations that are less realistic, and it puts them together to make this sort of like often emotionally fun, cute, idealized atmosphere that we can just sort of like live through while we're reading the story, and that's enjoyable. But that just isn't what I'm looking for when I read. So it's not that I think romance is bad or I think other types of stories are bad. It's just that I don't want that. That's not what interests me. It's not what I'm looking for. And I will say this did happen with me with Red Rising. Everybody that I saw everywhere loved Red Rising, and I really disliked Red Rising, and I couldn't find anybody else who disliked it. And every time I see a review on it, everybody loves it. And while I don't think it has perfect construction, I mean, it has decent construction. Even the things that are wrong with it, a lot of people who really love the book see them, but they don't bother them that much because there's other things about the book that they really love. But I think Red Rising just isn't my type of book because I just don't really care about the situation that the main character is, and I don't feel any connection to his personality or like the way that he emotionally experiences his struggles is just very distinct, and I just don't really relate. So I think that was my problem. But anyway, just to point out, that was one time when I had this issue. The second question then to ask if we want to try to help people understand if they'll really like a book or not when we do a review is, what experience is this book trying to give you? So this is a little bit different than taste. This is going to be more angled toward the purpose of a book. And this will be a big one for mood readers like me. I'm a mood reader, because it's going to come down to like, what do you want in that moment rather than just what your broad taste is. In thinking about this question, we can ask, or we can consider, what are some of the things that the book wants us to feel? Like, what are we being made to feel when we read the book? Are we supposed to be experiencing grief or love or comfort or excitement, intellectual stimulation, fear, escapism? Like, what is it? There's so many different things. And there's so many different reasons that people choose to read. Sometimes it is just to escape. Sometimes it is to think more deeply about a situation, put yourself in somebody else's shoes. Sometimes it's to kind of understand how to deal with an emotion like grief. There could be so many different reasons, and if we're not paying attention to that, then I think we can often pick up a book that sounds interesting and not realize that it's going to give an experience way different than we're actually hoping for. So I think especially about questions like, is this a book that I'm racing through and that I'm supposed to because it's like so exciting? Or is it a slow book that I'm supposed to be putting down and like pondering between chapters? Two books where I think this question, you can really see these questions through, is Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance by Robert Pirsig and The Maze Runner by James Dasher. If we look at Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, this is definitely a book that wants you to think. You are not supposed to race through this book. You are supposed to put this book down and consider what's happening. It has so many philosophical ideas. They're explained with detail and depth. And then there's so many layers to it. It's definitely a thinking book. The author wants you to think. Whereas The Maze Runner, I actually have not, I've only read a little tiny bit of it, but I've seen the movie and I've seen a lot of reviews and people talk about The Maze Runner and how The Maze Runner is so excellently done as a fast-paced book because the author is really great at giving you giving you a resolution to the chapters, but still leaving you on these little kind of cliffhanger, exciting pieces at the end of a chapter, which makes you want to jump right into the next chapter. And that his writing style is just such that it moves you along very quickly. And this is more of like a thriller book, so you want that excitement, you want that fast-paced feeling while you're reading it. To give another example, just for a book that I have read, is Dark Matter. So I read Dark Matter like last year, I think it's Blake Crouch is the writer. I had never read anything else by him. And I don't want to say I didn't like it, but I didn't love it. It has a lot of really good reviews too. And I thought it was fun and interesting at parts, but I just thought it was very light. It was just kind of made more for entertainment than for thought, but it was such a quick read. Like, I flew through that book so easily because of the way that it's written. He writes really well in terms of like getting you to feel the racingness of the book and to just like keep going. So he's got that fast-paced nature as well. And see, that really wasn't what I was looking for when I read that book, so it just wasn't as exciting to me. Whereas there's so many other people who love him and love that story because it's a lot of fun and it's fast. It moves. So sometimes the author is actually exceeding and giving you the experience that they want you to get from the book, but you still don't like the book because it's not the experience you were looking for. The third and last question that I think we should look at when we're considering how to review a book is, what conversation is this book trying to have? And that's going to have to do with meaning. This is one where I think you don't necessarily always have to do this in a review. Not everybody is as interested in this question or really needs it to determine if they're gonna like a book. But for me, this is a huge one. I think for people who want to like really analyze, investigate, learn, think about a book, get deeply into the story and have it be like an intellectual exercise as well as an entertaining one, this is an important question. This aspect of a book has to do with theme, but it's more about what are the big questions that are being brought up. Like, what is the book most interested in presenting to us and making us think about and try to figure out? So that could be something like, what makes people evil? How does somebody change? Is freedom worth suffering? What makes us human? That's the one that I like. Is love enough? Those types of questions, those big questions that the book is kind of like wrestling with. And for me, honestly, this is what brings me into a book. When I see a reviewer be like, the big questions of this book were this, and it's big questions that I'm interested in, then I want to read that book. So this one really works for me, even though I don't think it would work for everyone. I do think it could be an enticing point for a lot of people, a lot of readers. Now, pretty quickly, I want to just try this out with a book and see how it goes. A couple of months ago, I read the book Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid, who I had never read before, and I honestly didn't know anything about this author or what type of books they read. I just saw that it was really popular and lots of people were reading it and really loving it. And I didn't really know anything about it, but I still picked it up and I was like, let me try this out. I think I knew that it was a historical fiction. And I really like historical fiction, so I was like, oh, perfect. And this is a book that I didn't really love, even though it was so well recommended. With this sort of. And I didn't do a video on this book because I didn't really feel like I had that much to say about it, because there wasn't a lot of depth to it, in my opinion. Now that I've thought of these questions that we should be considering in reviews, I think that I could have a lot more to say about this book that would be useful. I'm going to attempt this without even really talking about what the story's about. I mean, you can look that up and see what it's about very easily, very quickly. Let's just think about the questions. The first one, again, is who is this book for? So I think this book is for people who really want something that feels earnest and like emotionally big. Like, this is a little dramatic. I don't want to say that in a negative way, but it's like a Hallmark movie feeling, like big emotions throughout the book. Whether those are emotions of love, of grief, of fear, of excitement, of hopefulness, whatever it is, of anger. There's a lot of big emotions going on in this book. So if you like that type of big drama book, then I think you'll really like this. I think it's also pretty idealistic and very hopeful. It has like sweeping, like romance that will sweep you off your feet. Although it does present challenges for the character and hard struggles as well, and that is also kind of like big emotional moments that are in the book. So don't think it's like only optimism all the time. I don't think that's happening in the book, but I think that that's like a major element of it. The second question is, what experience is the book trying to give? So again, I think this is a hopefulness, but I think it's sort of also inspiration for, going after the things that you really want and fighting for the things that you really care about. I think it's also supposed to be exciting. It's about an astronaut, I will say that. So the astronaut parts are exciting, and emotional catharsis I think you're supposed to have in this book. There's heartbreak, but then again, there's also a lot of hope and feeling what care and love can bring to your life. That's a lot of what this book is. For the last question, question 3, again, it's what conversations is the book trying to have? For this book, it's looking at questions interested in topics like the barriers that women and LGBTQ plus people face and have faced in the past. It's looking at the cost of hiding ourselves and the courage that we need to be open about who we are, and then whether connection is worth the vulnerability that it takes to truly have it deeply. And those aren't questions that I don't like or I'm not interested in. I am interested in those questions, but I think the way that they're presented, if we look back at the first two questions that I talked about, the more taste and purpose idea of the book. When I look at those aspects of the book, that's where it doesn't really fit with me. But I did like the questions that it asks, and I did feel that those are interesting. It just wasn't going about them in the way that really like pulls me into the story. It can help to know these 3 criteria or areas or questions, whatever you want to call it, about a book to see if it's what you want out of your reading experience. So going back to that question of why do we keep hating popular books, or why does this happen? I think that it happens because of the way that we often talk about books. When we say, is a book good, we think, oh, if it's good, I'll like it. But There is a difference between construction and compatibility. Something can be done well, but you're just not interested. And you might even not be interested in the moment. I have plenty of books that I pick up and I'm like, not right now. Especially if they're slow, like heavy books. Those are the type of books that I need to really be like prepared to get into. And then sometimes they're my favorite books of all, but I just can't pick up a book like that without being ready for it. I need to like be in the mood to put that much into the reading experience for certain books. So like a book like A Little Hatred, which has been talked about a bunch. I haven't read this book yet. I think I would like this book, but the way that people describe it as being so heavy, it's a book that I really need to be in the right mood for before I get into it. And sometimes we do talk about books like this, as I'm saying with A Little Hatred, but it's because that book is so heavy. Like, it stands out as being like wrecking people's lives when they read it. So we talk about it with that book, but we don't talk about the heaviness of a book with all the books we read, right? Even when they are sometimes heavy. So I do think that that's an important criteria. So as readers, I think being aware of these different types of things that we like and what we read, and as reviewers, I think maybe bringing them up more in our reviews could really help the people that we're speaking to. My reviews tend to be more on the side of delving into those big, deep, meaningful questions that I like and exploring what's going on and what the author is doing with that. And I want to keep doing that. But I do think that if I'm going to do a little review of the book at the beginning, too, to give people a sense of if they'll like it, that thinking about these 3 questions in my review will be really helpful to people. So I'm going to try and do that as well. I hope that this helped you think about the reading experience and the reviewing experience a little bit more. I'd love to know if you agree with me or you disagree. Do you think these questions make sense, or do you think that they actually wouldn't help you? Do you think that reviewers already do look at books in this way and describe them in this way, or do you agree with me that that can often be lacking and it's more of a focus on construction? Also, were there any books that you thought you were going to love and then when you read them, you just did not, and you didn't understand it first? And did you figure out what it was that, wasn't making it work for you? I'd love to hear some other examples like I had with Red Rising from anybody who's still watching. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.